afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Rotary Club of Madison. Yes, we are starting 2 minutes early today. We have a very full agenda. I'm sure you noticed we're starting 2 minutes early. I'm your club president, Charles McClymans, and it is so great to have you all here today. We have a full agenda, and we have lots of things up here decorating our table. Today's meeting is being sponsored by Denny Carey, who is celebrating his 90th birthday today. We will sing happy birthday to him and our other celebrants in a bit. But after retiring from dentistry over 20 years ago, Denny Carey has established himself as a recognized fused glass artist. Through Carey Fused Glass, he has created one-of-a-kind creations for individuals throughout our community and beyond, and donated his work for charity fundraisers, hosted workshops, including 3 Rotary Fellowship luncheons, and was commissioned to create major donor gifts for such entities as the Ronald McDonald House, Stream Performing Arts Building at Edgewood College, and Attic Angel Association. For the past 8 years, Carey Fused Glass has been featured in the Palm Springs Art Museum gift shop in Palm Springs, California. A description of fused glass and the process Denny used to create each piece in his personal studio is described on a sheet on your table. And in honor of his 90th birthday, Denny is offering as a gift to the Madison Rotary Foundation this fused glass enchanter right here. He's offering it, so if somebody wants to purchase it. He said, don't mention this, but in California, this goes for over $500, okay, in the gift shop. He's looking to get a couple $100s for it, and he's going to do a gift to the Madison Rotary Foundation in honor of his 90th birthday. So you can come up and see me or see Denny afterwards. Thank you, Denny, for sponsoring this. And happy birthday. Please remain standing, and our opening music will be Bob Dindorf, and Michael Richmond will lead us in singing Lift Every Voice and Sing. And we'll be doing verse 1. Lift every voice and sing, till earth and heaven ring. Let your rejoicing hymns of liberty, let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Mike Cold apologizes. Thank you. Please be seated. Yeah, we're missing our wonderful chorus that we had up here the last time we sang that, so we'll have to get that back together, don't you think? Definitely. Okay. Today's guest introductions will be by Rick Kiley.
Good afternoon, Rotarians. We have guests to introduce, before which I'd like to offer my apologies to all of those whose surnames I asked about their ethnic origins, but it's always a topic of interest to me with family history. Guests, would you please stand when I call your name and remain standing so we can all give you a warm Rotary greeting at once. Drew Mitchell-Gelfie is a guest of Alan Robinson. Jody Patek is a guest of Ann Lucky. Tanika Apollo is a guest of Carl Hampton. Ed Walker is a guest of Christine Beatty. Barry Stoner is a guest of Dory Hosick. Helen Bryan is a guest of Al Bryan. Sarah Schilling is a guest of the club. Josh Westcott is a guest of Rhonda Adams. Madison Dietzman is a guest of Susan Schmitz. Gail Wiseman is a guest of Laura Gallagher. And we have one visiting Rotarian from Madison West, Jim Zerbel. Let's give them all a warm welcome.
You may have noticed next to this beautiful fused glass, we have some pollinator flowers, and they are here, they're pollinating plants, which in addition to being pleasing to the eye, support species like bees and produce the food that we eat. Over the coming weeks, members of our Going Green Fellowship group will be bringing in these bouquets to call attention to the process of pollination, which is so vital to our life on this earth. And our thanks to Dave Ettinger and the Going Green Fellowship for bringing these in. Thanks, Dave. Yeah. So if you have allergies, you can come up and take a good whiff of these. No, they're great. They're beautiful. Today's moment of gratitude is going to be presented by Kai Gardner-Mishlove. She's the Executive Director of Jewish Social Services of Madison. She joined our Rotary Club last year, and she's going to come up and do the moment of gratitude. Kai?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so grateful to be here to give a moment of gratitude. I wanted to start out by inviting everyone to think about 3 words: connect, grow, and serve. And I want you to do that. I want you to take in a deep breath for connect and release it. Do the same for grow and release it and serve. That's what it's like to be a part of Rotary. Think about what those 3 words mean to you. For me, my experience of joining Rotary, from participating in a small club in Milwaukee, where I migrated from here, it was a club called the Amigos Rotary Club, to here joining a very large club. It's been nothing short of exceptional, really. I have so much gratitude for all of the examples of how I've been welcomed into Madison and also welcomed into this community of the Rotary. The lifelong friendships that I've gained and also networking that's benefited me professionally. And it's also, remember, eased my transition coming as a transplant to Madison. Each Rotary point of contact has been valuable. I've even met Rotary contacts in Mexico when I was traveling doing refugee work there. I'm so grateful to Peter Gray for welcoming me to Madison, recruiting me to come here. And I work for JSS, an agency where we've got 7 different continents, 7 different countries represented, 4 different continents, and 20 different languages. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful to Ron Luskin for inviting me to join the Rotary Club here, downtown Madison. At Rotary, every meeting, if you remember, you walk in, you're greeted by folks who are smiling at you. You pick up your badge, you select your lunch, you connect with old friends, you meet new friends. This is all a privilege. And then we come in here and we recite our creed, we sing songs, we welcome each other. Rotary is an oasis in a world that sometimes seems like it's spinning off of its axis. All of the connections that we make, we're doing good, we're spreading kindness. In Hebrew, there's a word called chesed. We're spreading kindness to the world by welcoming each other, supporting each other, and also doing the work of local and global support for many different communities. I've been so excited to belong to all of the different committees and doing the good work. I'm grateful for the positive impact that we're making, and I'm especially grateful myself because recently I had a life-threatening illness, and the caring committee reached out to me. That meant a lot to me. So I'm very, very grateful. And also with that illness, it reminded me that nothing is promised. But remember, everything is possible with gratitude. Everything is possible. So here I am here telling you how much I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful for each and every one of you and each contact that I'm able to make. And also I want to let you know that as a Jew, I come here, and it's in the middle of Passover. Pesach is another word for that. And so last night we had our second Seder. And we also started something called Counting of the Omer. There are 49 days in between the last Seder of Pesach and Shavuot, which is the time at which the Jews, it said that the Jews were given the Ten Commandments. And in that time, there's a lot of intensive reflection. There's a lot of thinking about what it means to be liberated. And I'm thinking about this in a spiritual and also in a mental way, how to be liberated from whatever is keeping you back mentally. And so those are universal themes. How do we do that? And so what I want to say is that it's so important in order to move from slavery to freedom to be in community with each other, because it's an individual person that we connect with and in our community and our family that makes us liberated. So I want to leave you with a thought. In life, there is a lot of bitterness, but there's also sweetness. So we have to always remember to reframe that. It's with friends, community, and mission that we become free. And in Rotary, we have a mission to do good. I am so grateful for this time, and I also want to leave you with a quote. Live a life full of humility, gratitude, intellectual curiosity, and never stop learning and giving. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kai, for your beautiful reflection and providing that moment of gratitude. We are grateful that you are in the club. Okay, next up, we have Laura Gallagher and Sarah Schilling. Laura's our club member, and they have been working over 6 months now, I think, on helping us talk about Rotary in the community, and so they're going to take us through a little exercise. Laura is the owner of the creative company, and I want to say they have generously donated their time. Both Laura and Sarah have been working with our leadership and the committee, and I will turn it over to them. Come on up.
Hi, friends. I'm going to start by saying that this has been a long process to get to here, but it's going to be so worth it. And I'm so glad that Kai started out talking about connecting, growing, and serving. So each of you will notice something on your tables that you haven't seen there before. And that's going to be your guide, but we're going to walk you through it today. One of the challenges that was brought to my attention early last fall was that Madison has grown how much? Anyone want to take any guesses? Or anyone know? How much? 14%. 14% since when? 2 years. That's a really, do you know that for a fact? Because I had read a little less than that, but you are such an optimist, so that's great. Let's just say that Madison has grown exponentially since the pandemic. We're one of the top growing smaller cities in the United States, medium-sized cities in the United States, and we also, we have a booming entrepreneurial market happening, and lots of new business startups and that sort of thing. We're ranked high in all kinds of areas. Our club, however, is not pacing with the city. And you are all so remarkable. And we together, collectively, can fix this in short order. So prior to the pandemic, we had over 500 members. Currently, we're at, anyone know? 410. That's right. So we have just a little bit of work to do. And among the 400 members here, if each of us did a few invitations, we could close that gap. What do you think, Charles, by the end of this year, 2024? Oh, Charles would like it done by the end of the Rotary year, his Rotary year. So we've only got a couple of months. No, it's good to have a tight deadline sometimes, but we're going to equip everyone too to be better at maybe inviting and to know what to say, because maybe you don't know what to say. I was just talking to Madison at our table, and she reached out to our club. She's a younger member. She was part of a club in Michigan, and she was looking to connect with exactly us, really. She was looking for this kind of a club, but connecting and learning from all of us and being part of a large organization that's already set in stone was what she was looking for, and we didn't recruit her. She wanted to come to us. So it's not that hard, but we're going to give you some tools that's going to help us to hit that goal.
Yep. Well, thank you so much for having me as a guest, I think for the 7th time. There's some friendly faces out there because I've been here a lot. Guess what? I'm a prospective member, right? I'm in your demographic for various reasons. And I need to connect. I work for Laura, and I want to help grow our business, so there's networking reasons that I should be here. And I recently moved back to Madison. Recent is relative. It's been a year and a half. I need to grow. I'm a younger leader. Young is relative, but I'm a younger leader in Madison, right? And I have wisdom to glean from folks like you, from leaders in our community, so I need to grow. I need to serve. I'm a white woman with a fair amount of privilege, and I need to do some good with that, and I need the right space to do it in. So I have other options for where I can do that. I don't know if y'all know, there's a few other networking groups in town. There's things like churches and other volunteer places I could be doing these things. So I need you guys to help me know why I would spend my time here. All right, so we have a framework for that.
And the framework is also on your table, and it's already spelled out there, more or less what I'm supposed to say. But we practiced this at the office for like 5 minutes before we came here.
Yep.
Do you
One
wanna say
more
anything?
slide for me. No, sorry, one more back. Sorry, we're having super fun with this clicker. Anyway, so basically what I need you guys to do is, if you're making a thoughtful invitation to someone like me, is find out a little bit about me and then find that point of connection. So if you think I'm going to want to come to Rotary because I'm going to have a stronger value for connect versus grow versus serve, there's different ways you can talk to me about that. So the framework for making a thoughtful invitation is name a problem. What's a pain point that Rotary solves for me? How does Rotary solve that? What's unique about what happens at Rotary or in one of the committees, the fellowships, things like that, things that happen in the community? What's a benefit? What's some memorable example that you have of Rotary really standing out as a place that's helped you connect, grow, or serve? And then call me to action. Some of you have said, when are you going to become a member? That's one way to say a call to action, but the other is to say, think of something that's going to help me take a next step and make that a question. So now Laura's going to give us an example. She's going to pretend she doesn't pay my paycheck or know me very well. She's going to do a first example on connect. So
Yeah,
go ahead.
so Sarah, you just moved to Madison, and I'm assuming that you want to connect with people, right? Have you considered Rotary?
I don't know anything about Rotary.
Oh my gosh, I get more done in an hour and a half in terms of my connecting kind of work at Rotary than I do anywhere else. I see my friends, I see people I do business with, I see other community leaders. I'm able to get more done in that hour and a half than any other time of the week. It's the most important hour and a half of my week.
And yeah.
Yeah, let's see, what was the next part? So I just started with the benefit, and then the call to action would be, would you like to come to lunch with me, Sarah? And obviously, there's a little more dialogue there, but she's going to say yes, because Gail did today, for example. Because lunch is great at Rotary, right?
Yeah, so a couple of the things that Laura did, and you're on Connect, that's great. So things I want you guys to notice when talking about Connect, making that sort of invitation, is she pointed out things like, I need to make some connections in the business community. She knows enough about me that I've been back in Madison for a year and a half, need to reestablish myself, things like that for business purposes. That's one angle. She's saying Rotary solves that in an hour a week, an entire network available in an hour a week. That's a unique solution you guys have. Other networking groups are like once a month. A benefit is this is that one-stop shop where that can happen, to have deeper relationships than a typical monthly networking gathering can do. And she wants to ask me something like, well, who are some professionals you want to meet? And then you can come with me, again, for an 8th time, we'll pretend didn't happen. But we'll go to the next one, just as an example of grow. So on some of your tables, you guys have John Terrell's example. Is John here right now? We'll see him tonight.
John,
there you are, yeah. So John gave a great example for us of why he comes to Rotary to grow. His problem is it's easy to get bogged down in that 9 to 5 daily grind. What's the next email? What's the next meeting? And so for him, the solution is Rotary guarantees that he shifts his perspective up and out to hear who is ever up on stage in a given week, to hear what y'all are saying at your tables. The benefit of that is he's rubbing shoulders with leaders. He's learning from people who are not like him. him, and he's not able to do that in a bunch of other networking groups as well. So his call to action, if he found somebody else who wanted to grow as well, personally or professionally, ask them, what are some ways that you want to be growing personally or professionally these days? I'd love to introduce you to some people who can help you do that.
You guys all tracking? Can you give me a yes? Yes? Okay, good. All right. I know you just had lunch. Okay.
Last example is to serve. So I'm going to have my trusty slide help there. So we have Aurelie. Is she here today?
Aurelie's over there.
Yay, hi. She gave up a lovely testimonial here on why she comes to Rotary to serve. So a problem that she can kind of speak into is she herself came from an underserved community. Guess who have some underserved, underdeveloped communities? Madison does, and she wants to be a solution for that here. So her solution with Rotary is to be a part of the Youth Scholarships Committee. Gives her an opportunity to give students an opportunity. The unique benefit of that is the way that this community accelerates opportunities through those scholarships for students who then go on to benefit their communities, the economy, the world, we might say, after they graduate. Call to action she could say is, well, what are some causes you are passionate about? I bet I can make some connections to some people in Rotary. Join me at lunch. So, there you go. We want to give you guys a chance to do this too, so.
It's your turn. So at your tables, you can just kind of pass them around, but they're vertical table tents for each one, connect, grow, or serve. We're going to keep them on the tables until we reach our goal. How about that? And we'll change out the people and things like that. If you'd like to volunteer for one, please talk to someone at the Rotary office. But they're to help you start to practice your elevator speech. And at the end of today's meeting, if you want to do that, or just try to do it before the end of the day, let us know how it goes. I guess that's kind of it.
Yeah, the same framework, the questions are on there. So it's a conversation starter for you guys to know how to talk about those different things. In all likelihood, you have prospective members at your table sometimes who need to hear those things. So it's great fodder for conversation. See if you can get your photo on one.
It's a thoughtful invitation. This is not a sales pitch. Let's be clear about this. I know that our club is one of the most or one of the best. I mean, we'd star. We have one of the top 10 clubs in the world, and just do the invitation because people will want to come. But have fun with it too, you guys. It's not a sales pitch. It really is an invitation. Thank you all, and thank you especially to Charles, to past president Paul Hoffman, and to our future president too. They were all involved with this as well as the Rotary office. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give a big round of applause for Laura and Sarah. They've donated a lot of their time. We will be sending this framework out, so look for it in the Friday newsletter, I believe. Is that right, Jane? Yep. Jane says yes. And it's something that you can use. It gives you a framework, connect, grow, and serve, but it's meeting people where they're at. And there are many avenues, many paths for Rotary, and it gives you an invitation. You as a Rotary member, that's how it all gets started. You have to invite them, right? Invite them to lunch. So use this framework, and again, thank you, Laura and Sarah, for all of your work on this. We do appreciate it. Okay, birthdays. We're on to birthdays to celebrate with a bit of humor and wisdom that complements Rotary's mission, and we invite our participants to make a gift to our Synergy Scholarship Fund. April 21st, Chuck Dorgan. The 22nd, Jeff Burkhart. 22nd, Frank Byrne. 22nd, Aaron Mullins. 23rd, Nino Amato. Today, April 24th, Denny Carey, who says, Denny says, downtown Rotary has enriched my life in many ways in the 25-plus years of membership. First is the feeling of having a vested interest in Madison. I grew up in a very small town and always had the feeling it was my town, where everyone knows your name. Serving on committees like community grants, scholarship grants, and mentoring scholars, and as well as participating in fellowship groups, have made Madison my town. Even more important, though, was the unexpected delight of meeting Carol Colby here at Rotary. Yep. And we will be celebrating our 19th wedding anniversary next month. Hard work. Yep. Hard work and good luck have paid off in spades. Thanks, Downtown Rotary. Thank you, Denny. April 24th, Christian Overland. The 25th, Beth Prohaska. Let's wish all of our celebrants a happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rotarians. Happy birthday to you. Great. Thank you, Michael. Okay, we have a couple of announcements. Jim Christensen, along with Susan Schmitz, have lined up our host for our annual vocational breakout on June 5th. You can sign up for that. It came out in the email today. Also, a reminder that on May 15th, our club is hosting a blood drive here at the park. There's some information on the tables. Our thanks to Aaron McCombs of our Community Projects Committee. I would like to give a shout out to past President Jason Barron, who organized the entire 2024 Rotary Tricon Conference. Yep, there were a good number of us there. We were, along with our District Governor Michelle McGrath from our club, connecting with Rotarians. We're up there in Green Bay, and it was extremely well organized, and I think we all were able to connect, grow, and serve through Rotary at a larger level. And I'd like to, the President's Spotlight, real quick, I would like to give a shout out, number one, to Aurelia Strada, who had celebrated her first gala, the Sparkles and Smiles Gala was successful, right, Aurelia? Yep, and Jason Jason Ilstrup was the MC for that, along with Lee Akers, so congrats on that. And I'd also like to congratulate Bridget Frazier on the opening dedication of the new WISO building. If you haven't been there yet, I highly encourage you to go and look at it. It is really a fabulous community asset. So.
Sign up to go see it.
Yes, they are going to be hosting one of the sites for the vocational lunch. Thank you, Susan. All right, on to our program. We have the weather guys here with us today. We have pollinators and the weather guys. And Joy Cardine is going to be the interlocutor with us today. So today's program features Steve Ackerman and Jonathan Martin. Steve Ackerman joined the UW-Madison faculty in the Department of Atmospheric and Oceanic Sciences in 1992. He served as director of the Cooperative Institute for Meteorological Satellite Studies, that's a mouthful, from 1999 to 2019, and also served as vice chancellor for research and graduate education at UW-Madison from 2019 to 2023. Jonathan Martin joined the faculty of UW-Madison in 1994 after completing his PhD in atmospheric sciences at the University of Washington. His research expertise is in the dynamics of mid-latitude weather systems, particularly the dynamics and precipitation distribution of cold season and extratropical cyclones. And Joy Cardine, a member of our Rotary Club and former talk show host of Wisconsin Public Radio for 31 years, is joining us as well, and she will be doing a question and answer with the weather guys. We have made a contribution to the Rotary International Polio Plus Fund as a way to thank you for being with us today, and I will turn this over to Joy.
Thank you very much, President Charles. And thanks to the weather guys for being with us. We will definitely have time for Q&A at the end of the program. We're actually going to do it earlier than you're used to. So if you have questions for the weather guys on anything weather or climate related, do this, and I'm going to come out into the audience with this microphone. We have limited microphones here, so I'll come out with this microphone to take your questions for the weather guys. We are going to be talking about all things weather, all things climate, anything you want to talk about. We will talk some about our very warm winter, but we won't just talk about our very warm winter. Let me get started just by asking our weather guys, Steve ACKERMAN and Jonathan Martin. You have been regular monthly guests on the Larry Mueller Show on Wisconsin Public Radio for more than 25 years. Where did the time go? And you have a weekly column called Ask the Weather Guys that has been running in the Wisconsin State Journal for, I think, more than 15 years.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about how did the Weather Guys come to be, and where did you get that distinguished name, the Weather Guys?
It's a fun name. So there have been some great talk shows on Wisconsin Public Radio. Some of them continue, some don't. Larry's, of course, is going on. And what would happen back in the mid-'90s is that if there was a cancellation on Larry's show, the producer, Jim Packard, at that time, would reach out and try and get somebody to fill in. And being advocates of that show, John and I got together and thought this would be a great thing to fill in on. It would be part of the Wisconsin idea. But a lot of times it didn't align. Eventually it did align, and John and I went on, and there were a lot of callers. We had a great time, and Larry had a great time, and he ended by saying, we're going to have you guys on again. And so we did. Eventually, because we just couldn't do it when they had cancellations, because a lot of times we traveled or were working, so we went back to Larry and said, look, if you pick a month, a day every month, we'll be there. And ever since, we've been doing it for 25 years. So
Yeah, and Steve recently retired, and this is the one thing, along with the column, that he's going to continue to do. And I always thought it was just that we wanted to challenge the citizens of Madison to learn how to listen better, because neither of us speaks the same exact variant of English as you do. But nonetheless, it's been really rewarding for me.
You're a fine one to talk about my accent.
Yeah. Well, listen, at least I speak English.
So, to clarify, you're from Boston?
I'm from Peabody, Massachusetts. Yep, right North Shore of Boston.
And Long
Long Island. Spelled LAWNGUYLAN.
One needs not say more.
Well, as someone who worked at Wisconsin Public Radio when you first started, I know part of the reason why you're called the Weather Guys is back then there were these funny car guys also on the radio, and I think that's a little bit where that came from, because you aren't just boring professors. You have fun conveying the...
Well, it's been nice seeing you, Joy. Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, I think Larry was the one that branded us by that name, because when we started coming back on that particular day in the month, he would say, and up next are the Weather Guys, and we liked that tagline and actually grabbed onto it. In fact, I'm just remembering now, there was a guy in Florida who started using that term, and so I actually got our name, the Weather Guys, trademarked in Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah.
So that they couldn't interfere with that.
Yeah, and that's where the pictures came from, too?
That's where the pictures came from, too.
And somehow they made Steve the snow miser, and I'm the heat miser, and I love the winter, so that didn't quite work out the way we thought. But he looks better in that bowler hat than I do.
Your segment on Larry's show is, at least now, the last Monday of the month?
The last Monday of the month.
And it runs from 11:45 to 12:30 p.m. right now, but that's going to change. It'll be an hour after May 20th when the Ideas Network is no more, but the format changes a little bit. What is going to be your top weather or climate story when you're on this coming Monday? What's going to lead off your Larry Mueller segment?
That's a great question, because we don't really set it. It kind of comes either through Larry or the producer or the callers. Larry did give us a head up. He emailed us and said that he had a question come in about, why do we always talk about the mean of temperature or moisture as opposed to the median, when the median is a more robust statistic? So we will make that interesting, by the way.
Yeah, we'll try.
So that's the only thing we know that's going to happen on Monday.
Well, we took the gloves off against these chemtrail people, too, on the Monday column, so got some nice comments about that. So maybe that'll be part of it, too.
That might be part part of it,
wait
too.
and see. But they're always calling us anyway, so that's going to
Yeah, I remember the chemtrail callers,
Yeah.
too. But you probably will talk about April showers, bring May flowers. I mean, spring started off cold and snowy, and now we've just had cold and rainy. And I understand that this weekend, someone said we should be building arcs. Is that right?
Yeah, it's going to rain a lot this weekend, but it won't be cold this time. It'll be in the mid-70s, so it'll feel tropical for the first time really all year. And so that'll be different, but it's going to rain a lot. It's been a really wet spring since about March 15th. It really has. And it's the 5th April out of the last 7 where we've had measurable snow. So that's a little bit of a streak that's interesting.
I didn't realize that streak of snow.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, it took a
Remember, I'm
long
retired.
It took a long time for that to stop, but it finally did, yeah.
So I promised that we were going to talk about winter, too. So, Jonathan, your favorite season. This winter was, correct me if I'm wrong, the warmest winter on record.
In the Midwest, including the Great Lakes region and west, so the western Great Lakes, Minnesota, parts of the Dakotas, it was the warmest winter in 132 years. And I think in many of those locations, that goes back to the beginning of record keeping. So, yeah, it's the warmest winter we've ever had in a lot of locations.
So is that because of climate change? Is that because of something else? What's going on?
I think there were two things working in concert this year. The one of them is the background climate change, which is undeniable. And there's a number of ways to measure it, even in the winter. And that's kind of one of the things that's been interesting for me over the last 10 years. I keep track of the aerial extent of air that's colder than 23 degrees Fahrenheit a mile above the ground. So it's uncontaminated by moving thermometers from one part of a city to another and all that. And that aerial extent, averaged over the 90 days from December 1 to February 28th, has systematically shrunk by almost 5% since 1948. And there's not been any hiatus in that shrinking. It's just continuously down. So that's always going on. That's in the background. This year we had a really robust El Nino, which tends to make our part of the world warmer and wetter during the wintertime. We weren't wetter, but we were warmer. So those things acting in concert, I think, was part of the explanation.
So why does El Nino make it warmer?
It alters, El Nino changes the location of tropical thunderstorms in the Pacific Ocean. And the Pacific Ocean's huge, 10,000 miles across at the equator. And so if that location changes, it has a big impact on the so-called subtropical jet stream, which is a major deliverer of substantial weather events during the wintertime over North America. So it tends to rev the subtropical jet stream up and move it further to the east. And the consequence is we're under the gun a little more than we usually are. And so we end up wetter and warmer generally because the subtropical jet, as it makes progress northward, the south side of that is the tropics. So it tends to get us closer to where it's warm.
Yeah. But climate change does have something to do with the warmer winters that we've been experiencing.
There's no question in my mind about that. Absolutely none. Yep.
Yeah, and is this the new normal then? We're just going to have warmer winters and less ice on our lakes and less snow falling on the ground?
I think when one looks at a trend that in the ice on the lakes is also part of that same trend, it becomes harder to imagine an old-fashioned winter. They will still occur because there's enough variability in the atmosphere and the climate system to surprise us. But I think when you start to force it in one direction and that direction doesn't get bent by any of our behavioral corrections, we have no reason to expect a return to normal conditions that would be mid-century, 20th century. That's not going to happen until and unless we do something about the way we're systematically altering the atmospheric composition. It's that simple.
Talk a little bit about, too, we had the first recorded tornado in February in Wisconsin ever, in recorded history anyway. Why did that happen?
I think it was eventually going to happen. February is only 28 days long, typically, right? So we have had 3 tornadoes, I think it is, in January, and maybe 6 in December. So it's rare that we get them in the wintertime. And I'm sure if you picked a particular week, well, obviously, since we only had 3 in January, there's a lot of weeks where you didn't have tornadoes. So I think it was something that was eventually going to happen. It was just a matter of when.
Yeah, and if you were
going to divide the likely underlying cause on that one, I think I would lean towards the El Nino versus the climate change. Because the El Nino is responsible for some of the perturbations in weather that come along over North America during a given winter when it's strong, and that's a really good example of one.
So how come El Nino, what did it just evaporate, and that's why we had a couple feet of snow in the beginning of spring?
I'm not an expert on that, but it always seems to wane in the early part of the spring. So we have experts in our department, world experts on this study. One I'm particularly thinking of, Dan, who could tell you in a sentence why that's the case. But they tend to decay very rapidly as winter turns to spring. So this one followed suit. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
So if we have questions in the audience, I'm going to bring my phone with me so I can have a sense of time. Well, I saw this first, so. Say your name.
Sure. Alan Robinson. Hi. So we had a warmer than average winter, and last summer we had the Canadian wildfires bring us tons of smog and smoke to our skies. So I'm wondering if our warmer winter is going to increase the likelihood that we'll have more Canadian wildfires this summer.
So I think part of that will be associated with the precipitation, in addition to the warmness and the dryness, and then the circulation pattern, because a lot of that smoke, while there were fires in Wisconsin, a lot of that smoke was coming from both coasts of Canada as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and last year's winter in Ontario particularly was way less snowy than normal, which set the spring up for an early start to there. They have a regular fire season, and it just came early and robustly. And as far as we've heard now a couple of times, there's still fires going on underground.
Underground.
So they may even have a head start for this year. And I don't think that the eastern part of Canada had a really much better fate snow-wise this winter, a little better than the last one. So I think there's a risk that returns again, at least immediately in the vicinity of those provinces. And as Steve points out, the circulation in our spring and summer may be different this year, so the transport of the smoke towards us may well differ, even if the fires are the same.
Mm-hmm. And when we say fires underground, we're not thinking of the flames. It's a smoldering kind of burning that you get with peat that's down underground.
Question here?
Yeah, wait, you got to hold it.
I know, I am.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Shirley, you're doing a great job, sorry. Susan Schmidt's here, and I've been a year-round bicycle rider for many years, and so I'm psycho about the weather apps, okay? And I've noticed, and maybe it's just something that's not really happening, that the accuracy of the weather has not, or excuse me, the predictability of what's coming has not been as accurate as it used to be. I mean, it changes like on an hourly basis sometimes. And so I wondered if that has anything to do with the changing in our climate, or...
I
would think with the, I was just thinking with the technology that there is nowadays, that it could be more accurate. Okay.
I would say that you're wrong. You don't have the mic anymore. No, in the sense, in the following sense, is that weather forecasting has undoubtedly gotten better. 10 years ago, the accuracy of 2 or 3 days is now the accuracy of 5 days. Yeah. I think the big difference in the example you're giving is because it's so much accurate, we pay so much more attention to it. And so we think, oh yeah, it's going to be beautiful, and then it's like, wait a minute, where did this wind come from? That wasn't in my app. And so I think it's more of it is more accurate, we depend on it more.
Yeah. In the Weather Service, I'll say one last thing about that, because the Weather Service has little or no control over how the information that they promulgate, based upon the advances we've made in computer technology and forecasting, numerical forecasting, they have no control over how it gets to your phone. So occasionally you see that weird spike where it says tomorrow's going to be 101, and it's quickly corrected. And it looks like the forecast is wrong, but it's really something about the technology that gets you a little screwed up.
I remember that old saying, too, if you don't like the weather in Wisconsin, wait 15 minutes and it'll change. So.
Hi, guys. Dale Fauerbach here. A big fan of yours for a long time. Listen every month. Last Tuesday, April 16th at about 9:56 p.m. There was a...
Talk about paying attention to the weather.
I recorded it. There was a giant lightning bolt that the light and the sound were simultaneous. It shook our house to the point where we had to fix all the pictures in the house that got...
Wow.
So talking to friends, and my wife went to a book club the next night, people who were miles away had exactly the same experience. What kind of lightning bolt I'm thinking maybe a horizontal that would cover a huge area, and there was one house that was struck by lightning about a half a mile from our house.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I would posit the following, that it was probably one stroke, but if you look at like photographs, a lot of times what we call forked lightning, it's got several branches. And so I would guess it's probably several of those branches potentially hitting the same area in essentially the same amount of time, is what I...
Yeah, and it could also have been, as you point out, it could have been a horizontal oriented stroke, which would cover a pretty decent distance, and everybody would get roughly the same conditions. So it could be either one of those are reasonable explanations. That's the day that people came and told me on the following Wednesday, did you get hail at your house last night? I said, no, we didn't get any hail. So it was really, there were a lot of local effects that night. Some people got almost marble-sized hail that same night.
Yeah, it was a shocking amount of vibration.
Yeah, wow.
We got pea-sized hail at our house that day. Yeah.
Here we go, one more here.
Yes, Corby White here, originally from Los Angeles, and this is for Professor Ackerman. 94, I get to Wisconsin, and growing up in Los Angeles, it was always warm. The only weather change was rain. I get to Wisconsin, I see snow for the first time my freshman year in 94. Then I take this class called Weather and Climate, and Professor Ackerman.
Yeah, this is good.
You got me hooked on the jet stream, barometric pressure. You're the reason why I drive my wife crazy. I have weather apps on all the TVs, my phone, her watch, my watch. And last week, I was going to a conference at Union South, and I'm walking along Mifflin. And I saw the building, and I started to laugh, and she said, what's so funny? I said, I had a professor, Professor Ackerman, that taught me everything about weather and climate and change, and I wonder what he's up to. Then I get here today, and here
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, I really appreciate hearing that. I love teaching that class, and John is teaching it this morning.
Yeah, and I just want to echo that. One of the real great tragedies that we've experienced at the University of Wisconsin in the last quarter century is the removal of Steve Ackerman from the classroom over time. It is. I'm saying this in earnestness. He ended up doing great service for us as Associate Vice Chancellor of Research and various other high positions on campus, leadership in our own department and in the Space Science and Engineering Center. But that gradually took him out of the classroom, and that was a huge waste of talent, because what you're saying is exactly right. He's been recognized for it a number of times. It would have been dozens more if he'd stayed with it. So great educator.
Thank you for being here. I'm Tom Pop. If carbon that we put in the atmosphere is why the climate is changing, is it realistic that it can be gotten back out? Is the technology out there and sequestered? And would that take us back to the climate of the mid-20th century if that happened?
I'll take the first part of it with regard to sequestration. There's a lot of research going on right now about how do you take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, and a lot going on across campus trying to figure out how to withdraw it. I mean, it is possible because you can do that with trees. Trees are taken out and they're getting bigger. The problem is eventually they'll die and that'll return the carbon back up. So there are a lot of experiments and research going on in that area. Now, whether or not if we were able to take it out, would that bring us back to our weather?
It might be rather analogous to if you've got a refrigerator that's working fine and you put a candle in it for some reason, and you are surprised by why the temperature can't get below 36 degrees in your refrigerator because you keep that candle burning inside with, letting off heat. So the change in the chemical composition of the atmosphere has forced an increase of several watts per unit per square meter of energy that's hitting the surface of the Earth over the whole globe that wasn't there in the early part of the 20th century. And so you can't
there's no way until and unless that chemical response to infrared radiation is removed from the atmosphere, you can't expect that that radiation will not be impinging on the surface. And until it doesn't, we can't get back to that old-time climate. So I think the answer is probably yes, you can relax back to it, but you have to make this move that Steve's talking about first, and the one you asked about. And even then, I think one of the things that might become an interesting question in the next 20 or 30 years is how long will that time to relax take once we do clean up the atmosphere? I don't think anybody's said anything about that yet.
Yeah, I don't know.
I have a feeling it'll be 50 to 100 years. So we've got it, the cake's been baked for all of our lifetimes, and we've got some work to do to secure changes for future lifetimes.
Question over here.
Hi there, Jeff Burkhardt. On a related note, I've read some things about some mitigation efforts. One of them being seeding clouds to try and create more of a cloud cover so that the Earth doesn't warm as much. Another being creating a big parasol out in space. What about those efforts? Do you think those are likely to help with the global warming?
I'd love to hear the arguments in our current Congress about how to build that parasol. Okay, so we talk a lot about we need to have some will to get these things done. It seems to me, why should we choose the most difficult problem when the simpler one's on the table? And I think there's also, about mitigation efforts, there's the law of unintended consequences that's always lurking behind every corner of every problem. And it seems to me the height of hubris, challenging the construction, the engineers with the Titanic, to say that's an unsinkable ship, and that if we start polluting our atmosphere intentionally with aerosols, it'll only have one-dimensional effect. It'll do exactly what we want it to do. It seems improbable to me. So I'm worried about those efforts.
Question here.
Hi, my name's Connor Moran. My daughter's 12, and she really cares about the radar, and so we find ourselves looking at the radar anytime there's a storm coming. And she believes that there have been a number of storms that go right around Madison lately, where they used to hit Madison. And so I'm wondering if there have been any differences in Madison's specific weather or weather patterns across Wisconsin that may or may not be affecting us.
So I know that there have been looks at total precipitation in Madison, generally by decade, and that is rapidly going up, and it's been going up that way for a while. So overall, in a climate sense, no, there isn't a fork, although there are a lot of times when I'm also looking at my radar app, because my garden's dry, and it seems like that cell just split and goes through north to south. And so again, I think it's sort of related to Susan's comment of, what do you want to happen? And why isn't it happening? But I will also add this, because it's important to know. We get that data from the U.S. government, from NOAA, and it's provided free to us. That's not the case in Europe. And so when I was in Europe a number of years ago and I wanted to see if it was raining, I couldn't get the radar data because you had to pay for it. And so it becomes really important that all that weather data, whether it's radar, satellites, or ground observations, remain free for the public to use.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Joe has a question.
In the old days, the weather used to seem to follow a pattern. And I, being an amateur sailor, thought I could predict the weather 3 days in advance. I can't do that anymore. The weather doesn't seem to be following a pattern. Is that true, or is it my imagination?
I think it's a form of your imagination. Here's what I mean by that. We can predict it better at 3 to 5 days now than we could in the older days. And it might just be that that skill has outpaced your own skill at it, which might have been better in the old days. And so, this imbalance of expectation versus what you can actually get maybe is getting you frustrated. I don't know. But it would do that to me, for sure, if that were the case. So I would say yes, it's probably not quite true.
Hi, I'm Andrea Kaminsky, and I've learned heard a new vocabulary word in the last few months, and I'm wondering, could you define atmospheric river and tell us, could that happen here?
Yeah, the atmospheric river is, maybe you shouldn't go. I'm frustrated by the term.
No, I'm going to let him go. It is something that happens. It's a phrase that we use. A lot of times we think of it as associated with the jet and water vapor distributions. Why we call that?
Yeah, that's the part that bothers me. It turns out that if one were to draw a ring around the Earth at 45 degrees north or 40 degrees north, some huge fraction of the water vapor that's transported poleward of that latitude is done by a few events around the globe at any one moment. It's not a constant slow flux. And so these events have been known as atmospheric rivers for some 20 years or so. But the thing is, they're connected to mid-latitude cyclones, which are not anything new. And so it seems as if there's a community in our field that's kind of invented this term to differentiate itself from the study of weather systems, which it doesn't need to do. So anyway, that's why I'm a little frustrated by it. It's an artificial discrimination between one feature and another. But they don't tend to affect the Midwest in the way they do the coastal regions, which are more adjacent to the oceans. Yeah.
And also, river makes you think it's continuous in terms of water in there, and that's not, as John's saying, that's not the situation.
One more question here.
Yeah, Gary Peterson. I've always been impressed by your building with all the satellite dishes on it, and I've always had the understanding that your department is really big on a national basis. Could you give me a summary of, is that true? I mean, I understand we do firefighting predictions all over the United States. And
yeah, I'll add my comment and then turn it over to John. But yeah, Wisconsin is known as the birthplace of weather satellites. It all began here. It began with Vern Sumi, who was a faculty member who ended up helping to get that building built with all the satellite dishes on top. Those are all receiving satellite data. So yeah, we are well known internationally, but not just from satellite meteorology.
Yeah, now in the last 25 or so years, we've become a world leader in studying the climate on a lot of different dimensions, and then also in weather systems, understanding the weather systems that affect us both in the summertime and in the wintertime. So we got a wide-ranging expertise. We've just recently increased our faculty to 18, which is back to our historical high number. 6 of those faculty are women, which far outstrips anybody else in the country in terms of diversity by gender. And one of our colleagues is currently serving as the Undersecretary of Commerce for Data and Prediction, Michael Morgan. He's an African-American, and he's my best friend, actually, and I miss him. I wish he was back here, but he's doing great service for the country. So we are on the radar at a very high level in a lot of different ways. And the thing that's really neat about it is that opportunities like we have right now with you is a chance to let you know and to let your children, your grandchildren know if they're interested in the weather that they don't have to go anywhere. In fact, if they do, they should go here. It's the best place to be. And so, yeah, we're in a really great position for the future, I think. No place is better than us.
And if I could just... The only comment I'll add to that is, Michael's your best friend?
Yes.
All right, last question here.
Okay. My name is Mark Clear. I'd like to put a little bit of a fine point on the various questions about climate change. Is it too late?
No. It's never too late. I think that, carbon dioxide resides in the atmosphere as best we understand it for about 50 to 70 years. Right now, there's a lot of it in there, 100 parts per million more than the long-term average in the last several thousand years. If we wait 50 or 100 years and we clean up our act in the interim, we can get ourselves back to where we were. It doesn't mean homes won't be destroyed by the weather. It doesn't mean that we won't curse it. But we won't at least have a climate that we've intentionally altered and pretended we didn't any longer. And I think that would be a better place for us all to be. So I don't think it's ever too late. But the second part of that question brings up the other aspect that we talked about earlier. How long does it take to relax back once we clean up the atmosphere? It's a really interesting question, and I wonder how long it'll be. I don't think it's centuries, but it probably is decades. Great. Thank you, weather guys.
John and Steve, we really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to come here and join us. Thank you for having me. It was a very engaging conversation, so let's thank them again. Okay, and I hope you will join us next week when we will have our annual Rotary Youth Awards program. We have over 50 students being recognized, and it's always one of the highlights of the year. So come back and join us next week for that and hear the stories of these amazing young people. And before we leave, please stand, and we will recite together the Rotary 4-way test of the things we think, say, and do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Come up here, somebody, and get this beautiful enchanter as well. So we are adjourned. Thank you.